Hello and welcome to Yodo. I'm Dr. Sarah Bohn, and today what we're going to discuss is health by generations. In America, currently we have 7 living generations, fewer in the first and fewer in the last, of course. But it's important to see and to learn and recognize the specific concerns for each generation. So the greatest generation, also known as the GI generation, 1900 to 1920s, there's about 160,000 individuals in this generation still alive. That's people who are over the age of 92. The silent generation, 1920s to mid-1940s, these individuals are in their late 70s to their early 90s, and it's about 7% of the U.S. population. The baby boomers, mid-1940s to mid-1960s, there's 68 million individuals still alive in this generation, and they're 60 to 80 years of age. Gen X, mid-60s to the mid-80s, and there's 65 million latchkey kids out there right now that saw the "this is your brain and this is your brain on drugs" commercial where they cracked the egg into the pan. The Millennials, mid-1980s through the 1990s, and there's 72 million in this generation, and they're in their mid-20s to early 40s. 65% of this generation plan to find a new job this year, and 90% of this millennial generation earns 20% less than their parents did at the same age. Gen Z, late 1990s to the mid-20 teens, 69 million Americans were born in this generation, and they're avid gamers, and they're the most diverse group of Americans that we've ever had. Gen Alpha are our babies. Late 2015s to the present, there's right now 38 million in this generation, and they're, of course, still in their young age and in their developmental years. So I want to give a disclaimer. There is some debate on the exact years and how sharply these are demarcated, but I want to say that I think that unless you're well within this range, there can certainly be outliers within a generation where they feel like they fit one generation better than another. And it could have to do with the community they were brought up in, the age of their parents, their belief system in the household. So see which one of these generations fits you best. Let's break them down. So 1900 to about 1925, that's the greatest generation, or the GI generation. They enjoyed the sharpest rise in school achievement from past to current times. They were the All-Americans, the All-American athlete, they were military, they enjoyed the post-war affluence and societal growth. They were very proud to be patriots and believed in the American way, and still do. They're big savers, and many of them left loads of money to their children. The greatest generation is the first group now to have been identified as senior citizens. They didn't believe in divorce. Many of them had rough relationships with their own children, and they valued hard work. Those remaining alive are now requiring assistance, either fully or at least some assistance. Many are fully independent care. The events of their life were shaped by the war, 1914 to 1918, World War I, the Great War, the 1920s, the Roaring '20s, the economical boom, arts, culture. Think of the movie Mame. 1920, women began to vote. 1923, birth control, Margaret Sanger. And 1929, the crash of the stock market. Health concerns for this greatest generation? Assistance. Most of them have lost their independence and are needing assistance. Physical assistance, self-care assistance, medical assistance, mental, social, spiritual assistance. They suffer from isolation. They're concerned about their safety, and they have a lot of medication issues and needs. We need to provide them and their family members information about their disease process, the disease trajectory, and they need to be involved in end-of-life discussions. We need to anticipate the decline due to age and disease progression that's going to occur naturally, and whether or not they need the same medications. They may need more of some medications, they may need less of some medications, and they may need elimination of some medications. There are changes in muscle strength and coordination, balance, endurance. Their reaction time can interfere with their safe driving ability and other activities that are no longer safe for them to be active in. They have significant fall risk, and many of them have risk for frailty and fracture. Many complain of bowel and bladder issues, have skin-related issues, and some have communication concerns, whether it's changes of sight, hearing, and they all tend to struggle with technology. For their memory, many of them feel that they've been there and done that, and now they don't care anymore. Some do have dementing illnesses, but many can recall those times. They just don't care to anymore. Social and spiritual needs should be addressed for loneliness, depression. They've lost siblings, partners, parents, children, and they may have issues with anxiety and worry. Prevention and preparation for this greatest generation as the aging continues is their immunization needs, ongoing review of their medications, nutritional evaluation, and keeping them involved, activities, telling stories, giving them open-ended questions, and life review. That's going to help them maintain a good mood. Communication should be slow, loud, and if it's printed, large print and at a 6th grade level. We need to anticipate and prepare for decline to occur. They are going to need more assistance. They've got muscle changes, balance changes, bowel and bladder issues. They're going to suffer from disease progression. Many diseases that this population has don't have a cure. They have treatments. Their memory may be having issues, and they may be having decline of normal organ function just as the aging process continues. They're going to have sensation changes, sleep changes, and they may have issues regulating their temperature. Healthcare facts regarding this greatest generation: 35% of hospital stays are from this generation, and 38% of emergency department visits. They require more and longer patient visits, and they have a high expectation of service from the system, from physicians, and from nurses and pharmacists. Decisions that they are making are often assisted by their children from another generation that are influenced by their belief system. This generation had one of the highest proportionate numbers of COVID deaths during the COVID crisis. The next generation we're going to discuss is the silent generation, mid-1920s to the mid-1940s. They endured adolescence during the Great Depression. They saw the 29 crash, World War II, Pearl Harbor in 1941 and D-Day in 1944, and the military served during the Korean War. They were raised with waste not, want not. Many became parents at young ages, and they believed that children were to be seen and not heard. They lessened stigmas in the Americans' view. Stigmas about divorce, marrying outside of their own race or culture. They were anti-war, they were feminists, civil rights activists. They grew up with rock and roll, and they lived the 60s. They want to continue to be active, and many feel like they're torn between retiring and continuing to work and feel value. They're looking to find balance, and they want to remain independent. They're really struggling, some of them, to find difficulty accepting the changes of age because they want to be able to provide for their own individual self, their health, and their safety. Many of them struggle with technology, but they're also the silver surfers. They're the ones who are, on Facebook and on the internet, constantly looking things up and gathering information. The silent generation believes that they can control many things, and when they can't control it, since they've never experienced defeat, they're very unhappy about it. They struggle to accept change in society and change in their own health because they have commanded most of those changes throughout their lifetime. Many of them that did serve in the military have challenges that they have in their health from that war exposure. War-related injuries might be cold exposure, chemical or nuclear exposure, separation changes, separation anxiety in men and in women, and the females, whether they served in the military or not, learned self-reliance through their hardships. And these factors and life experiences make them reluctant to admit decline, admit defeat, accept decline, make them not want to accept any help, and it makes it extremely difficult for them to even ask for assistance. They need to be educated about the changes in their health, and they need to be given time to consider what those changes might be. We need to point out being practical and being prepared, and they need to be reminded that they are mortal. They want to be involved with their own decisions, and they want to have time and opportunity to express their feelings of loss and of grief, and particularly their achievements. Per vital statistics, the leading causes of death for the greatest and the silent generation, this is the group. Remember, they had the active youth, and throughout their life, they were very active, but they had many health advances that came along too late to significantly impact their longevity, and they're giving them a higher quality of life. So for them, it's heart disease, stroke, mini stroke, lung problems, COPD, pneumonia, cancer, and dementing illnesses. Alzheimer's ranks in one of the highest categories of dementing illnesses that these individuals suffer from. Now let's look at the boomers, mid-1940s to the mid-1960s. What a group. They were shaped by post-World War II optimism, the Vietnam era. They have a strong community sense. They were raised during McCarthyism, harassment, and blacklisting. Some, if they were old enough, will remember watching the JFK assassination on television. They lived during the greatest part of the civil rights movement, and they enjoyed the greatest increase in wealth and became more affluent. They are suspicious of and have rebelled against the system, the government, controlling leaders, Hitler, Stalin. They've rebelled against institutions and even their own parents. They have embraced change. They were risk acceptors, whether it was substance abuse, sexual risk, divorce, living alone, raising children alone. They were less focused on academic achievements than some of the other generations. They rejected ideas of the full-time mom, the suburbs, and the man. They sought opportunities for self-finding of greater importance, and their self-importance, actually, and self-growth was very important to this generation, almost greater than any other generation. They want for a rich retirement, and they want to be given a lot of latitude. They want to be honored and recognized as still being productive. They want to focus on their strengths, and sometimes they can do that to the point of ignoring their own weaknesses. They have high expectations from society and respect for their accomplishments. Currently, this is the largest group of veterans. The average age of military enlistment from this group was 22, and they endured Agent Orange. Many have hepatitis C or were at risk for that, and many had illicit drug issues. They may be the decision makers for themselves, for their parents of another generation, and advising their children in yet a third generation. Their children could be Gen X or Gen Y, as many late-born boomers delayed marriage and also delayed starting families. They are truly interested in what others think, feel, and why. Addressing the health needs of the boomers. Mental and physical needs need to be addressed, and they may not trust their providers because of that issue with trust of the man. Life expectancy is mid to late 70s. They had a very active youth and may participated in risky lifestyles that subtract some years from their life, but they prioritized their health. They prioritized experiences and relationships. Their health risks currently are for heart disease, cancers, stroke, diabetes, STD-related illnesses, and the health changes that may have occurred from illicit drug use. Nearly equal in deaths in this population from the COVID crisis to the silent generation. It's too soon to know, but healthcare is really concerned for possible irreversible lung damage due to COVID. Now let's move on to the Gen X, mid-60s to the mid-80s. This group is shaped by both parents working outside of the home. These are the true latchkey kids. These kids grew up with a TV being their babysitter. Many were the product of failed marriages, as the divorce rate doubled in the 70s and 80s across the United States. They grew up through the AIDS epidemic that shaped part of their life. They saw the fall of the Berlin Wall, the end of the Cold War. They endured corporate layoffs and downsizing. They saw the energy crisis and the oil embargo. They saw the Watergate scandal and the rise of MTV and video games. As adults, many married late. They wanted strong families, and they embraced change, such as same-sex marriage, interracial marriage, divorce, and remarriage. They are supportive and accepting of their children's life choices. Some of these individuals from Gen X became the first helicopter parents. Immigration for Gen X became a priority, and it was a priority for acceptance. This is the greatest entrepreneurial generation, and they encouraged globalization. The Gen X generation is more of a sandwich generation than any of the others, as they're caring for parents and children and possibly grandchildren. Many of them may have their grandchildren living in the home with them. They may need to be helping out not just with finances, but helping with health care for their parents and providing a place for these other generations to live. They can be subject to polymental trauma because they take on extra burdens and have mental worries related to finances and global concerns and changes that are out of their control. The Gen X military experiences included the Gulf War, Desert Storm. Average age of these military enlistees was 24, and 35% were from minorities versus 12% from other generations. So these military veterans could be dealing with stress-related issues, PTSD, and possible late effects of toxic exposures. Gen X views on health include mostly that healthcare is shopped for as if it were groceries or other goods and services. They have short-term expectations for the healthcare system. They demand communication, and they demand understanding on their level. They want to see those test results, and they expect you to go over them with them. As they are just beginning to experience the changes of age, they're receiving diagnoses that they will carry the rest of their life, some of them with worrisome chronic illness or chronic health condition diagnoses. They are learning for the first time that there are limitations to their bodies, and they've never experienced limitation before. Many are not happy about this information. Their life expectancy is into their mid-80s. They had a very active youth. They often had to care for themselves when they were young, and many made safer choices throughout their life by watching older generations. The healthcare advances came along early enough with their active youth to make a significant impact in their longevity. Leading cause of death for the Gen X based on vital statistics information is cancer, heart disease, motor vehicle accident, and suicide. Now we're ready for Generation Y, the Millennials, mid-1980s to the late 1990s. This generation had its boom in the 1990s. They have steadily decreased their own risks by observation of what other generations and their habits have been. This generation is shaped by technology. They are very tech savvy, they prefer large corporations, and they really appreciate teamwork. They have a favorable memory of Ronald Reagan. They lived through Y2K, and they have a constant internal debate on liberal versus conservative views, and they like to adopt a little bit of each. They appreciate and are committed to close relationships, family, and friends. They have high self-career goals. They appreciate lifestyle. They have a respect for money. They appreciate a good community and want to participate in their community. And they have a high expectation for everyone just to show up. They have fewer children, and they do not feel the need to be married to have children or to be parents. As parents, they are less critical of their children and their children's choices, and they are very involved in the lives of their children. And some of these are helicopter or lawnmower parents. They can live vicariously through the lives of their children and often involve their children in many activities, clubs, groups, and intramural sports. Military experience of the millennial, they endured the war on terror, and their average age of enlistment was 27. 15% of enlistees from this group were female. They are more racially and ethically diverse, and more than 30% from this generation have a service-connected disability. Many millennials need assistance with resilience. They've endured enough changes and difficulties that are out of their control in their life that bouncing back after one more insult can be very difficult for them. They have struggled to enter the workforce due to delayed retirement of older generations, and they suffer from reverse age discrimination. They can also struggle with issues of separation anxiety and FOMO, fear of missing out. Millennials will prioritize health maintenance and a healthy lifestyle. They're very safety conscious for themselves, for the environment, for others, at work, at home. They have a high importance for life-work balance. Per vital statistics, their risks and primary current causes of death are motor vehicle accidents, accidental injury, homicide, suicide, cancers, and heart disease. Gen Z, the Zoomers, late 1990s to the mid-20 teens. Record number of births occurred during this time, and they may become one of the largest generations. They are the digital native. They have no life experience without computers, technology, cell phones. They are social media experts. They've seen a large increase in the number of and acceptance of minorities, and they really embrace the melting pot behavior and culture. Gen Z has concerns for the environment and climate change. They are disturbed by war on terror and gun violence. They have social justice priorities, and that may include same-sex relationships, Black Lives Matter. This group really has significant views on the dystopian society, both belief system and fears regarding dystopian societies. And the COVID-19 crisis has affected their ability for trust of the healthcare system as well as the government system. They look for any evidence of judgment, yet they may be quick to judge others. They're quick to point out biases of others, but they may not recognize their own bias. Gen Z has few true personal health needs because of their youth. The most common causes of death for this group are unintentional injury followed by suicide and homicide. Serious health risks for Gen Z are predicted at this point in time to be primarily malignancy and heart-related. The late effects of COVID-19 on their future medical care and health is unknown, but significant mental health issues are already emerging related to what they went through with COVID-19. Significant life expectancy variability is predicted across the Gen Z generation across the United States because of their less active youth and the medical advances that have occurred that may make a change in their longevity. Many had a sedentary youth, but the generation has also experienced significant improvement in the standard of living and medical progress. So they're very health conscious, and some may experience significant longevity. It's just a little bit too soon to predict for Gen Z. Generation Alpha is the current generation that's being born right now, 2015 to now, born entirely in the 21st century. This really is the third millennia. This is the youngest group of our generations. And right now, their leading cause of death is congenital abnormalities, maternal pregnancy complications, short gestation because of their youth. All of their health care is shopped for by others, and it's just too early to make accurate predictions regarding their longevity as there's so many variables. We're going to have to wait and see what this generation brings to. In summary, each generation has their own special makeup and their own particular needs, as to each has had their own life experiences, good and bad, that affect their preferences and their needs. Workers in the healthcare system need to keep these factors in mind when looking at how best to provide care for a various age group. Being aware of your own personal risks and those of your family can help you anticipate the needs and possible changes. After hearing all this, which generation do you feel fits you best and why? Do you feel that one generation fits you exactly, or maybe you're a blend of a couple of different generations? I feel like I'm a blend of a couple of different generations, and I feel like my children are a blend of a couple of different generations. Keep in mind that we want to learn, we want to grow, and we want to be prepared for what our own health journey has for us. If there's something specific that you want to learn or find out more information on, please leave a comment below and let us know. Thanks for joining in today. Bye now.